not knowing what I want is actually ruining my life right now. And let me explain. So recently, I've been needing of cash flow because I don't want to live in my mom's basement anymore. Just kidding. I'm in Asia right now, but I definitely need some cash flow to the business because I haven't done any hardcore work for a while. Actually, recently, a bunch of my friends needed help with kind of like sales stuff. And basically what I've been doing is just talking to people and negotiating contracts and stuff. And I find myself always kind of going back to this point, whether it's like, is this worth it or not? Should I do it? I can do it, but I don't know if it's worth it. I find myself running through those things. And what I noticed was that it's really interesting to see that when it comes to negotiating for other people, it is super easy. But when it comes to negotiating for what I want, it all of a sudden feels so much harder. I'm just like, well, why the is it this way? And it wasn't until I started talking to my friends where we kind of came to the conclusion that I always default to what I can do for other people, but never something that I want. And a lot of times I feel like I'm settling for things that I just can do. So I was talking to my friend Jewel, my friend Eugene Choi, I was talking to my friend Mike Kim, I was talking to Chris Do. We all kind of recognize the same thing. It's like, well, what do you want, Kevin? And to me, that's just such a loaded question because there's a lot. I want a hot ABG. I don't want to work for money, you know? Like there's all these small things. But I just find that question for me is so overwhelming. And I actually talked to another one of my friends. She's an attorney and she's kind of a coach. And she was kind of walking me through everything, which I thought was really cool. Anyways, as I was going through their questions, I realized like, wait, is it that I actually don't know what I want? Or is it more that I never gave myself permission? My friend Jewel had this great analogy. It's kind of like a broken light switch. My whole life, I never really thought I had options, right? And I was always like super hyper vigilant on what could go wrong, right? Like, for example, the story that I told my friend Joel was that back in the day, if I did anything wrong, I would get my ass beat by my dad. And the earliest memory that I have is like when I was 5 years old, I dropped a soup can on the floor at the mall or something, or I ran the cart into my dad's leg accidentally because he stopped. And he beat the out of me, yell at me. It was actually quite traumatizing, which wasn't that great. And to get the punishment that I did was not warranted, honestly. And so it's like, that was my whole life where I just didn't want to piss off my dad. And I was always really hyper vigilant about not making the wrong mistake, kind of reducing the risk of like getting my ass beat, honestly. So I was always dealing with that. But because of that, I never really thought about, oh, what do I enjoy? I just thought about the things that were responsible. So for example, doing pharmacy made sense because I was always monitoring like what could go wrong. It's a prevention career, right? And being hyper vigilant was good for that. But like a broken light switch, it's like I always defaulted to what can I do for people? Not do I actually want to do this? So I thought that was extremely interesting. And as I was talking to these people, I realized with boundaries, I was really struggling because I was taking on stuff that wasn't mine. And I was having this resentment and bitterness. And something that my friend Jewel said that was very interesting was like, hey, if you're feeling the resentment and bitterness, it means that boundaries were crossed way long ago. And I was like, oh, kind of like stage 4 cancer? And she's like, exactly. And I'm like, oh, so what are the signs of potential resentment? And she's like, anytime you feel uncomfortable or something's like doesn't feel right, you should lean on that. It's like interesting. So back to the negotiation deals that I was talking about. One of the deals that I was talking about is a major one. It might be a unicorn company, honestly. But basically they were saying like, this role, you need people to be all in. You probably need to drop all your clients and all that. And I was like, ooh, I'm not sure if I want that. Because to me, I realized that freedom is kind of important to me. That's why I quit pharmacy. I would never go back to pharmacy, but the truth is I could always go back to collect cash, you know, if I needed it. And so I thought that was really interesting. And so there were just like small things like as I was taking these deals, whether I should do this or not, to be honest with you. How do I say? It was really interesting. And so this is how I kind of got better. Like after I had all these conversations, this is my major takeaway throughout all the conversations. It's like, first step is, it's so hard to figure out what we want sometimes, that the best place to start is like what we don't want whatsoever. And so like I got this from my attorney friends Sheila and Jewel. We were just talking about kind of the anti-version. So for example, taking more than 4 to 6 sales calls per day is an absolute no for me. It burns me the out. It stalls all my other processes and all that sort of stuff too. The other thing that is a non-negotiable for me as well is like content creation. I need to be building my personal brand, and I need to hold that sacred, and I need to know what those boundaries are and all that. It's things like that, right? Like those things that are really, really important to me. After that, it's like, okay, well, now that I know the things that are that I wouldn't do for any amount of money, now what are the things I want? And the things that I really liked about these companies is like I got along with all the founders, I got along with all the people there. I really love their products and vision and how they treat people. Like every single opportunity I have, it's kind of like that. And so I like those aspects. I wanted to kind of work with them, but if I were to work with them, what are the terms that I would really want to work with them under? And Jewel, she called me out. She was like, what would make something like really joyful for you? Like this a joyful experience. I'm like, getting paid, working for. She caught me because I was like, yeah, basically these are conditions that would make this non-resentful. She was like, dude, that's the most Asian answer. You said like, I said joyful, not freaking resentment. And then I was like, oh, so that's where I always defaulted to kind of responsibility. So I started thinking, I'm like, okay, you know, what are the terms? For me, I also think about like, okay, what do I like? But what are the conditions for me to do my best work too? And so I'm starting to outline that. So I'm starting to have like, okay, being able to play a more strategic role, being to have leverage because my energy is so much. I just don't have the, I don't want to say ability, but the same capacity to just like out hustle and grind it all the time. It's just not worth it for me, right? And then the last element is I learned from Chris. He's like, honestly, say whatever's on your mind, ask for what you want, and then be prepared to walk away, man. And so this is the hardest part as a chronic people pleaser because I want to make everyone happy sometimes. And it's a selfish way of helping people because at the end of the day, it makes me feel good to help people. Validates my own ego of like, oh, I'm valuable, people validate me and but at the end of the day, it's actually quite selfish and not like always from the point of view that I'm truly helping people unconditionally. And this is that energy that Daniel Priestley talks about, with or without you energy. And I think one last thing that Jewel just really kind of honed in on me was something along the lines of like, you're exactly where you need to be right now. And so the analogy she gave is like, imagine these decision trees that you make. And there's the solid lines, which are the decisions that you actually make, and the could have beens, like the dotted lines. And so if I dated Tiffany, the ABG back in the day, and I thought about it, but I didn't do it because I didn't want to be in a toxic relationship, that's a dotted line. But my ex of LA, that was a solid line because that actually happened. And a lot of times our brains treat those dotted lines a lot like those solid lines. And I thought that was really, really interesting. As Chris was talking to me, he didn't use the same analogy, but it was like, will you regret saying no to this? And I think I was like, partially, I think I would say no because one of the companies, it's a unicorn company, honestly. It's like, has the potential to do really, really big numbers and I get to be a part of that and I felt like I missed out. But at what cost? It's like the cost of my sanity and all that sort of shit too. So yeah, I mean, I want to share this with you because this is actually like real-time shit that I'm going through. And that's kind of like the goal of this new channel of Kevin the Yapper, just to kind of share like less edited stuff, but more in real life shit that's happening. Because I'm not gonna lie, it costs a lot of money to have an editing team and thumbnails. And honestly, I a lot of times just want to share my thoughts just through my daily life and stuff and just create more content. Anyways, guys, what do you think I should do? What questions do you think I should be asking? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe if you like this yapping content. And here's another video that the algo gods will think you'll like. Talk to you later, mother people. Bye.